Today, we're delving into selective outrage and how the impact on social media on children's brain development fuels this outrage into creating this crazy dynamic that we're seeing all over the country and possibly all over the world for the past 10 years. So sit back and get ready for the show. This is the first time you're tuning in. Welcome to Thinking to Think. I'm the podcast host, Michael Antonio Aponte, also known as M.A. Aponte, author and social science educator. And today we're going to be delving into the selective outrage and social media. So, selective outrage, in case you don't know, it really isn't just a matter of personal preference or psychological bias. It can have far-reaching consequences for individuals, communities, and society as a whole. So let's delve deeper into the dangers and hypocrisy lurking beneath the surface of selective outrage. So, to give you a clear definition, is when it's okay for something to happen and what under the same context or thing, because it involves other people, it is not okay. So, for example, personal experience. As you know, one of my day job is I run a school, and I haven't changed the procedures or policies or what have you from the previous administration. However, I was accused by some parents that I did change it, and I did change the policies and procedures, and without consent and without conversations, and they were very angry about it. But it was okay for the previous administration. So, because they were friends. Rules for thee, not for me. Type of situation. So, that's as far as I go personally about it. I'm not, for, sensitivity and security, I'm not going to mention the details of it, but that's just an example. Another example is the immigration policy between one president and another president, specifically the immigration policies under former President Obama versus the immigration policy with former President Trump, and how nothing really changed in the first few years, but because it was a different administration, it became an issue. So it's one of those things where it's a selective outrage. Chris Rock, actually, the comedian, did an entire named out of the same thing, selective outrage, where he talks about that, where no one wants to, you can no longer listen to R. Kelly on the radio, but we still have Michael Jackson playing all over the world. So say what you will, I'm not going into my personal preference, but I am stating these as examples because they are true examples by its definition. In any case, one of the most significant dangers of selective outrage is its potential to perpetuate injustice and inequality. When we prioritize certain issues over others based on arbitrary criteria such as proximity, where it's at, identity, who's involved, or sensationalism, how hot is the topic, we risk overlooking systemic patterns of oppression or marginalization. This can lead to skewed perception of reality, where some voices are amplified while others are silenced, exacerbating existing power of imbalances and hindering progress towards true equality and justice. Moreover, selective outrage can breed cynicism and distrust among the public, undermining the credibility and legitimacy of social justice movements and advocacy efforts. We see this when we protest regarding anti-war, and the same group of people want to send troops and weapons over to Ukraine, or the people that state that they do not believe in violence, but then that same group of people promote Hamas. Your credibility significantly drops in society because of it. So this is something you really need to consider. Because when people witness inconsistency or double standards in the way that moral indignation is expressed and directed, they may become disillusioned or disengaged, feeling that their concerns are being manipulated or exploited for political or ideological gains. That's why you hear, oh, they're just a bunch of communists or crazy people, all these other things, because your credibility is no longer valid to many of those supporters that you once had. So we see this in crimes, where we see a crime happen and it's okay because that person and was a particular race or gender or sexual orientation. Meanwhile, when the same crime happens and it's somebody else, that's that identity, then it's a problem. So your credibility drops significantly from that support you once had. Outrage is its potential to foster moral hypocrisy and moral grandstanding. When individuals or groups selectively condemn certain behaviors or actions while turning a blind eye to similar transgressions within their own ranks, they undermine their moral authority and integrity. This hypocrisy erodes trust and to hold individuals and institutions accountable for their actions, perpetuating a culture of impunity and moral relativism. So, how can we guard against the dangers of hypocrisy of selective outrage? Well, it starts empathy and intellectual humility. By acknowledging our own biases and blind spots, we can strive to be more consistent and principled in our moral judgments, resisting the temptation to prioritize our own interests or agendas over the greater good. Furthermore, we must hold ourselves and others accountable for practicing what we preach, challenging hypocrisy and double standards wherever they arise. This requires courage, integrity, and willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, even when it means questioning cherished beliefs or affiliations, your loved ones, or your brothers and sisters, the people that you may be walking shoulder to shoulder with to fight a certain injustice. Meanwhile, if you see something that they do that should not fit into that moral action, you condemn that very action. It's okay to call somebody out and still do it in a loving manner. In the end, combating selective outrage requires a collective effort to foster a culture of empathy, solidarity, and genuine concern for the well-being of all members of society. By listening to diverse perspectives, seeking common ground, and advocating for justice and equality with consistency and integrity, we can create a world where moral indignation is truly a force for positive change. Now, this segues into social media and how it perpetuates the very thing that we are trying to avoid. Social media has become an integral part of our daily lives, shaping how we communicate, share information, and perceive the world around us. But what happens when children and the brain continues to develop up to I believe, if I'm not mistaken, up to the age of 25? So these college students that we're seeing going all over the campuses, their brains are still being developed, whether they believe they're adults or not. And with their still developing brains are immersed in this digital landscape. So what happens when that is the case? When we have that selective outrage being perpetuated and pushed by the algorithm, where when you support it, you get likes and dopamine hits. Then what? To help us unpack this complex issue, let's start by understanding the basics. How does social media actually affect brain development? Well, one key factor is the dopamine-driven reward system. Every like, comment, and notification triggers a surge of dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter in the brain. This can create a cycle of seeking validation and instant gratification that can be addictive, especially for young, impressionable minds. Now remember, the brain develops around up to the age of approximately 25. So all these college students, they're still being developed. But it's not just about dopamine. Social media also influences attention spans, self-esteem, and social interactions. Constant scrolling and exposure to curated images and posts can distort their perceptions of reality and leads to feelings of inadequacy or FOMO, the fear of missing out. So we have social media pushing this narrow view of the world and this is why the whole TikTok thing was a hot topic. Now, this is also part of that selective outrage. That TikTok bill that was signed into law that's going to happen, I'm assuming that ban is going to happen soon. I'm not a fan of that bill, and I can do a whole episode if you guys requested on me breaking down that law that was signed and how it definitely challenges the ideas of freedom of speech in the 21st century. So if you are interested in that, leave a comment, send a message, and if I get enough response, I can go into it and dive deep into that law that was signed. However, nevertheless, I want to stay on topic regarding how selective outrage and these ideological driven, not moral, not actual true messages, but rather just idea driven, and how social media perpetuates that, how it pushes that. And then we expect those that are following and liking and sharing and commenting, they are become part of that wheel of inconsistency. And they believe that is the norm, when in fact it's not. So what can parents, educators, and caregivers do to support healthy digital habits? Try to stop it before it happens, basically. Well, this is to all those, and it starts with fostering open communication and teaching children to be critical consumers of online content. Remember, if you signed up for a social media site and it was free, and most of them are, chances are you are the product. Encouraging offline activities helps with this, such as reading, playing outdoors, or engaging in creative pursuits. Can also provide much needed balances in their lives. I personally try to disconnect myself every once in a while, where I try to stay away from all social media, even technology. I'm into tabletop gaming, You have your D&D. I do 3D printing. I do miniature painting. I love those things. I play like role-playing games. When I do use electronics but try to stay away from social media, I play video games. I'm not multiplayer games. Right now I'm currently trying to get 100% in the new Final Fantasy Rebirth. Those are things to get me away from social media and all this other craziness, to try to calm down from that. And I'm an adult, so I could only imagine the brain developing mind. This is why I have a bunch of board games and tabletop games that I use with my children, especially my 9-year-old, because she needs to break away from electronics once in a while. So I encourage that. And ultimately, it's about empowering children to navigate the digital landscape responsibly and develop resilience in the face of online pressures. By promoting digital literacy skills and modeling positive online and offline behaviors, we can help them cultivate a healthy relationship with social media and technology. But we also have to have those deep conversations. Are you really anti-war or anti-interventionalist? Then maybe it's time to self-reflect when we promote sending resources to countries that are in the middle of a war that might pull us into war, whether it's Israel, Ukraine, or Palestine. Regardless of where you are at, if you are anti-interventionalist, then reflect on supports that you may have that contradicts the very thing you truly believe in. Now, I'm not saying I am. I'm just giving that as an example. So please do not misinterpret this. Okay? I try my best not to put my own personal bias in these episodes. But when I do, I try to give you a full disclosure on opinion based off of facts. Everything that I have said was factual. It is 100% factual. You can look at the definitions. You can look at all these things. I am not trying to steer you guys away. I thank you for all your support that have been following me. This podcast has been growing significantly, and I know it is because you guys are sharing it, and I appreciate it. Continue sharing it, because we need to develop critical thinkers in this world, especially with everything that is going on and possibly a brink of World War III, when you have Russia and China doing joint operations with the scenario of Taiwan. These are things that are happening. And you can look it up. I'm encouraging you to do your research. And if you really want me to go into that, leave a comment, talk about it. I'll be more than happy to discuss it and give you nothing but the facts. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I encourage you to reflect on your relationships, social media, and how it's been influenced you, those around you, and think of the patterns and the behaviors. Remember, critical thinking is more important now than ever, especially with this digital distractions that are occurring and the promotion of selective outrage. So thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And join us next time as we continue exploration of the mind, society, culture, and education. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Love you all, and have a beautiful day.